right, hey guys, let's quick talk through to be vocab. So we are starting right at the top here. He stays or he remains is se queda. Se queda. All right, now this is a present tense conjugation, but let's think back to, okay, well, what would this look like in the infinitive? To stay or to remain. To stay or to remain is quedarse, right? Quedarse. Notice it is a reflexive verb. Okay, we have that reflexive pronoun on the back end, so we're going to have to bump that to the front, modify it, and then conjugate the verb as normal. So present tense, we have me queda, te quedas, se queda, nos quedamos, se quedan. Okay? Nothing weird about it. It's really pretty much a regular verb, just that reflexive piece. Okay, so remember your reflexive pronouns are me, te, se, nos, se. Okay, preterite tense, how would you say he stayed or he remained? Well, again, it's an AR verb, so you need to use that chart from yesterday, right? Este o almozaron. Well, we want he or she stayed or remained, so that would be se quedó, right? Accent over the O. And remember, accents are important. From here on out, it's a half point for accents, so keep those in. All right, he or she drove. Repiten, condujo. Now, this is a preterite tense conjugation. That does tell us something, though, okay, because there's no accent in it, but it's preterite. So that would tell us, hey, this is an irregular verb. All right, so the infinitive for this, to drive, is conducir. Okay, conducir. That means to drive. Present tense, okay, he or she drives. We're almost a regular verb. In the he form we are. So it would be conduce. He conduce, he or she drives. That is pretty, there's nothing funky about that one, okay? And it's a great cognate. It means to conduct, right? I mean, a conductor drives a train. So use that to help you. Conduce. Now, present tense, this is almost a regular verb except for that yo form, because it's where we see all of our irregulars in the present tense yo, right? So if you want to say I drive, it is conduzco. Okay, conduzco. We add a Z in there. So conduzco means I drive. Preterite tense, we've got condujo as he or she drove. Well, let's quick go through the conjugations for that. So if you want to say I drove, conduje. You drove, condujiste. He or she drove, condujo. We drove, condujimos. And they drove is condujeron. Notice that the J here does replace the I in the ending. Okay, so we're not, just like in dijeron, where that J took the place of the I and the ieron ending, same thing is happening right here, okay? All right, the next one is he or she hit. Pegó. Pegó. This is a regular verb. Okay, now let's look at that ending. O with the accent tells us what? Tells us, hey, yeah, this is an AR verb. So what is to hit? Pegar. Pegar means to hit. All right, so present tense, regular verb. So pego, pegas, he or she hit would be pega. And then pegamos, pegan. Preterite tense, same thing. All right, we've got pego, which means he or she hit. Okay, let's think through, though, how would I do all of my conjugations? Well, I hit, class A, is pegué. Pegué. Notice I added a U. Why? Why did I add an U? Well, if I didn't, look at it. How would you say that word? Pegué. Well, that's not what we want. We want pegué. So we add a U because that lets the G still be a G, and then we add our ending. So pegué. Will we run into that same problem here with you hit, pegaste? Nope, right? That vowel doesn't force that pronunciation change. So pegaste is fine. He or she hit, pegó. We hit, pegamos, and they hit, pegaron. So the only time we're seeing that spell change is in the yo form. All right. They lost. Perdieron. Perdieron. Okay, now let's look at this ending. Ieron tells us this is an AR or it's an ER-IR verb. Which one? Tells us it's an ER-IR. So in this case, it's going to be perder, which means to lose. Okay, perder means to lose. Present tense, they lose. Okay. Now, in present tense, perder does have a stem change. In the present tense, it has an E to IE stem change. So they lose will be what? Pierden. Okay, we're going to see the E to IE stem change, and we're going to see the appropriate endings. So, I lose, pierdo. They lose, pierde. Or you lose, pierdes. He or she loses, pierde. We lose, perdimos, because we're in the boot, right? Or we're not in the boot, I guess. And they lose is pierden. Then, preterite tense, we see perdieron. This one does not have a stem change. Okay, this one is a regular verb in the preterite tense, but it is an ER-IR verb, and we haven't worked much with that chart yet. So what am I trying to say here? Let's go through the whole chart. So I lost is perdí. You lost, perdiste. He or she lost, perdió. We lost, perdimos. And they lost, perdieron. So we are seeing our endings for the ER-IR chart here. It's I, iste, yo, imos, ieron. Okay, so start working with that chart a little bit more. That will be next unit's focus. Right now we're focusing on the ARs, but this is a good intro chart for you. Okay, it crashed. Repiten, se chocó. All right, let's look at that ending. What does that ending tell us? Tells us it's an AR verb. So how would I say to crash? Chocar? Just chocar? Nope, we need chocarse, right? Because there's a se in that original form, so we have to maintain that in our infinitive. He can't just get lost. He has to stay there. So chocarse means to crash. Now, we want it crashes in the present tense, which is going to be se choca. Okay, se choca. This is a regular verb in the present tense. So me choco, te chocas, se choca, nos chocamos, se chocan. Okay, so that's present tense. Preterite tense, we have se chocó. All right, let's do the conjugations over here. So how would you say I crashed? Okay, remember, we have to modify our se first. So that'd be me. What? Like this, we ran into another problem, right? If we type it like that, it's me chose. Well, that's not what we want. We want to maintain the chocarse. So you probably guessed it by now. We're going to make a spell change. We're going to change that C to a QU, and then we'll keep our ending. So me choque. All right, so we're seeing what we call a car verb here. Cars will always do that in the yo form. So just so you've heard that term. So me choque, you crashed, te chocaste, he or she crashed, se chocó, we crashed, nos chocamos, and they crashed, se chocaron. Okay, so everything is regular in that verb other than the yo form. And again, we made the spell change just to maintain that original k sound. All right, then we've got they fly, which is vuelan. Vuelan. So let's take that back to the infinitive. First off, is this going to be an AR or an ER-IR verb? AR, we know that from the ending, right, of on. Now, to fly, is it vuelar? No, it's not. It's volar. Okay, now that tells you that in the present tense, it is an O to UE stem change. So O to UE spell change. Now in the present, remember that those stem changes happen in the boot. So it would be vuelo, vuelas, vuela, volamos, no stem change in that nosotros, and vuelan. Preterite tense, it is not a stem changer. Okay, not a stem changer because AR verbs actually can't stem change in the preterite tense. So that automatically eliminates that. Now, if we want to say they flew, what's my ending here? Aron. Volaron means they flew. Okay, but hey, let's add in our conjugations. Okay, so I flew is what? Volé. You flew, volaste. He or she flew, voló. We flew, volamos. And they flew, volaron. It's kind of a funny word when you say it over and over, flew. All right. Then we are on to they jump. They jump is saltan. Saltan. So tell me, is this going to be an AR or an ER-IR verb? Think to yourself. AR, so to jump is saltar. Okay. Present tense, there is not one thing weird about it. So I jump, salto, saltas, salta, saltamos, saltan. In the preterite tense, they jumped. Think for a second. Okay. We want they jumped. It's an AR verb. We're going to the they form. So we've got salt. What's my ending? Aron. Saltaron is they jumped. Okay, let's work on that chart quick. Try not to cheat off of anything else. How do you say here? I jumped. Salte. You jumped. Saltaste. He or she jumped. Salto. We jumped. Saltamos. And they jumped. Saltaron. Again, remember those endings are aste, o, amos, aron. Commit those to memory. All right, then the final one for this is he or she launched him or herself. Se lanzó. Se lanzó. Now, of this, what's he or she launched? Lanzó, and that means the se is him or herself. So we could, in theory, take the se off, and then it just means he launched. I don't know, I launched the water balloon out the window. But if I launched myself out the window, well, then it has to be reflexive. All right, so let's take it over to the infinitive form. How would you say to launch oneself? That's going to be lanzarse, right? To launch oneself. Again, if we took the se away and we just had lanzar, that means to launch something else. I launched my phone across the room, whatever it might be. Once I put the se on, though, that means oneself. Okay, so how would you say he or she launches him or herself? Well, we're going to move the se to the front. Se. And then it's he or she, so lanza. Okay, he or she, se lanza. This is a regular verb in the present tense, so me lanzo, te lanzas, se lanza, nos lanzamos, se lanzan. Preterite tense, then we see se lanzó, which means he or she launched. Okay, let's work through that here. I launched myself, be me lancé. Notice that I changed my Z to a C. Me lancé. We have to do that. It's a spell change that's necessary. Again, it's something for pronunciation. So me lancé. We're not going to do it in the other forms, though. So me lancé, te lanzaste, se lanzó, nos lanzamos, and se lanzaron. Bueno. So again, just that one form in the present or in the preterite tense, yo. All right, so now we've seen lanzar, chocar, and pegar. Now, this is what we call, between those three, we call them car-gar-zar verbs, meaning they end in car, like chocar, gar, like pegar, and zar, like lanzar. Okay, when we have a car-gar-zar, they will always have that spell change, those different spell changes that I just showed you in the preterite tense yo. Okay, so just know that those will be hanging around. They're going to pop back up. And so it's good just to at least know the term of car-gar-zar. That means we're going to make those spell changes to maintain original pronunciations. Okay, but they only happen in the preterite tense yo. All right, that's pretty much it for 2B. There are a few extra words here. The first one is amarse, amarse, which means to love. Really, it would mean to love each other because of the se on the ending. This is the love that people or living things feel towards one another. That's different than if I say like, me encanta pizza, I love pizza. Okay, because remember, we do differentiate the kind of loves that we feel in Spanish because the way that you love your mom is different than the way you love pizza. Then the next one, abrazarse. Okay, abrazarse means to hug, really each other because of the se on the ending. So to hug each other. Abrazarse. That actually makes sense because your arm is a brazo, right? And so you can see that word right inside of hug because how do you hug each other? With your arms. And then the final one here is echar. Echar means to throw out. All right, so those are the words that you're going to need for the second half of the unit. Get comfortable with them, study them on Quizlet. All right, hope that makes sense. But if you have questions, please let me know.